Tēnā. Thanks for hanging out in the waiting room. Whānau, we're just letting everybody in who's in the waiting room, so just be a minute or so. So just while you're coming in, if you can just turn your video on if you're comfortable with that, so we can see all your beautiful kanohi, smiling faces, and make sure that your name is visible. And then if you can add in the chat who you are and where you're from, so we know who's here. And we'll just let a couple more people in, and then we'll start. Thanks for showing up, all of you. It looks like we're going to be a nice small ropu today, which is really great for deeper conversations, so that's often a good thing. I think that's about it for now. And then, so if you could stop people coming in, Lynette, just hold them in the waiting room while we just have our karakia and make a start, and then let people on as we go. So, well, kia ora e te whānau, really lovely to see you. There's so many online offerings these days that, it's like standing in a lolly shop sometimes, isn't it? So I really appreciate that you've taken the time to be able to join us and to hear just some of the incredible wisdom that we're going to hear from Kathy in the journey of stone soup and te Ora Hou. Let's start with karakia. Tau mai, ko te mori tū, ko te mori uho, ko te mori o rangi, ko te mori o papa, ko te mori aroha. Tau mai, ko te mori aiu, ko te mori o ngā tūpuna. Uhi, wero, hare mai te toki. Haumi e, hui e, tai ki e. Kia ora. So just a little introduction to me if you haven't seen me before. He Ora Hou no Inarangi, no Yorkshire o Kutupuna. Te puaki a hau ki na taha taha o wea ki Durham, ke motu ika hau e nuhu ana. I am the project lead for Child Rich Communities, part of Inspiring Communities. And it's just a pleasure today to have Stone Soup back on, because when I jumped in this chair in, I don't know, 3 or so years ago, Stone Soup were one of the first people that we had on the online Kōrero series, and we'll hear a little bit more about their story, but they've had a long time to learn and to review and reinvent and also a long time to make some incredible changes for our rangatahi and our tamariki. So firstly, just a bit of background about Child Rich Communities. Could you just pop the first slide on that, please? So Child Rich Communities came about in 2014. And some of you who were kicking around in the sort of child wellbeing, child youth wellbeing space will remember that 2014 was a time of a lot of change. So we had the Vulnerable Children's Act, we had the Child Poverty Monitor, we had lots of changes that were all needed. However, a lot of those changes were talking about our mokopuna in deficit ways. And so Inspiring Communities at the time were working around the motu with people who were on the ground, whose main passion was to increase the well-being and the mana of tamariki, of rangatahi and whānau. And what they saw was that there was no deficit language in those communities. In fact, they were seeing those children and those rangatahi as the taonga that they are, as the gifts that they are within their community. And those communities could see that, by strengthening those rangatahi and those tamariki in the place where they were and connecting them with their community, then incredible positive change was happening for that whānau. And so they worked alongside 21 communities, and Stone Soup was one of those communities back in the day, eh, Kathy? And they found that there was a number of similarities in the way that those communities were engaging, in the way those communities were viewing their whānau and their tamariki. And so Child Rich Communities was born at that time to really be a remedy for some of the deficit language and to advocate and showcase some of the incredible work that was happening on the ground. And so since that point, it's continued in a variety of ways as a mechanism really to afi the work of the communities, to keep that kōrero going around the power of community change, and to advocate, and also to network and link people up who are all of similar passions and similar minds. And what better time than now to continue this kōrero. Now more than ever, it seems really important that we come together with the belief and the knowledge that the power sits within our communities, and within our communities, you know, the well-being for our young people can be found. So there's a number of core stakeholders. Those are them below on that slide, and that's some details of the vision and the mission. Could you move on to the next slide, please, Lynette? So it's our great privilege today to hear from Kathy Whānau, who's been involved in inspiring communities through the work that she has been doing. And we've been kind of like harvesting stories from Stone Soup and from that roku for some time. So it's a real pleasure to have her here, and just to join the conversation with her so we can learn, you know, across quite a couple of decades really, as to how they began, how things have changed, and what their journey is now. So there's a lot of rich gold to be found in some of the stories and in the time that we've got to share. So this is not just about Kathy and I sitting here and talking at you. This is an opportunity for us all to hop in a breakout room, or if we're just a few people, we'll just stay in a big group like this, but to really use this time to learn from others, to offer and share what it is that you know about community-led development and building child-rich communities, and to share some of those treasures really, and then together we can co-learn for the benefit of our mokopuna. Next slide, please, Lynette. So I'm just going to briefly run through some of those similarities from those 21 communities in 2014, remembering that Stone Soup was one of those communities. And today we'll get a chance to hear from Kathy how much of these practices still remain valid and what else has been built on them. And we read through these practices and they're not rocket science. However, they are incredibly powerful mechanisms in order to make change. So engagement, how it is that we engage. So, you know, working alongside whānau and tamariki, rangatahi, not in a deficit model, you know, seeing the gifts that are there and getting alongside whānau to really enable them to be the decision makers, to enable them to lead, rather than this top-down approach of, you know, services on top rather than services on tap is a lovely quote that I just heard recently. So really enabling whānau and rangatahi and tamariki to feel empowered, to feel valued in the place where they are, so they have a connection to their environment, and through that they can feel that their decision making and their voice matters. So engagement, empowerment, connection. Next slide, please, Lynette. Collaboration, relationship focused, responsive, and thinking and working holistically. So those were the general aspects that all of those 21 communities in 2014 had when they were making positive change, building child-rich communities. They all had these aspects. Now, in every community, it looked slightly different, but when you paired it back, these were the essential aspects. And the beauty of having Kathy on today is that these may be the bones, and she can flesh things out, and we can really see how it is that that's been done. Thanks, Lynette. So I just want to introduce Kathy. Could you just stop the slides for a little while, and we'll just introduce Kathy. Thank you. So yes, I want to introduce Kathy and Stone Soup. Now, I was just reading yesterday that Stone Soup now is made up of 770 homes. And that is 20 streets, the equivalent of 20 streets. And it's a couple of decades now, really, that, if not more, that Stone Soup began. And like many of our catalysts for change, it began from a tragedy in 2007. But that brought the community together to really be passionate about doing things differently for their tamariki, for their young people. And so to start to look at, okay, how can we do this collectively? How are we going to make the change? And we'll see some photos in a little while. You just had a bit of a glimpse at that. And so now there's, 5 different sites around the country. Stone Soup still continues a number of times a year, and it's a mechanism for bringing the community together. And what started, as soup and kai has now spread to a whole number of activities that is whānau driven, rangatahi driven, and the impact of that has been, incredible changes in well-being and sense of connection and empowerment of that community. So I am not the right person to be telling you about this. So I'm going to hand over to Kathy now. Kathy, thank you for joining us. I'm really looking forward to just hearing about the changes happened even in the last time that we've had you on in the last sort of 3 years. So I'll hand over to you to introduce yourself and to begin to give us a background as to where the kaupapa came from, and then how it is that you have began to put that decision making in the hands of those rangatahi to support them to feel valued, and then the changes that you've seen. So I'm going to be quiet now. I'm going to hand over to you. Thanks, Kathy.
Kia ora, thank you for that beautiful introduction. I'll just clarify. So I am Ora Hou, and we have other Ora Hou people in the chat. We are one of 5 centres. Ora Hou came out of Youth for Christ over 30 years ago as a Maori Christian kaupapa. And we've been across the country. We have 5 centres currently, and we are the middle child in Whanganui. So we're in Whanganui, Gisborne, Whanganui, Wellington East, and Christchurch. And we all are part of a thing called Taki Mano. So Taki Mano is community-led development in our 5 centres, but they're all different because we're all different communities. So it's not a cookie cutter. It is about sharing wisdom, tips, supporting, having a village like we have here today, but our own individual communities identifying the challenges, our strengths, and making a change. Te Ora Hou, with our mauri, which is our values, CLD aligns really well with it because we have our own rangatahi-led development. So we have a thing called whakapākari, which is our youth leaders. So we have our youth groups, which are different in each centre. So I'm not going to explain that because I will be not quite telling the truth. But in Whanganui, we have our intermediate age boy and girl groups. We have our senior club. And as they go through, some young people show real great leadership skills. And so they join whakapākari and they have leadership roles. They co-design youth group. They run youth group a couple of times. They come to our AGM and have a voice on how Te Ora Hou runs in Whanganui. And I'll just quote Greg. I'm going to quote people that you may or may not know all the way through this because we do this together. We are a kaupapa whānau. Greg says, our youth, our kids are not tomorrow, they're today. They're people today. They are our community today. And so we need to stop thinking that they're tomorrow, they'll have a voice tomorrow because they actually have a voice today. They have a point of view. They have experiences and feelings. They have it is their community. So we create opportunities wherever we can to make sure that they are at the table in all things Te Ora Hou. So I am blessed to have a workplace that's in our kaupapa. And I see it across the country in all our other Te Ora Hous. The mechanisms might be slightly different. Child-rich communities, I love that kaupapa. I was at the 2014, I remembered the round tables and the brainstorming and stuff like that, and being in a room of people that were wanting to strengthen the community the right way. And we're bringing their skills, their strengths, their resources, and how can we do it together? And with every time we get together in spaces like this and are strengthening our connections and how we do mahi, our community benefits from it, whether it's sharing resources. So we have lots of resources that we apply for funding for. We loan them out for free for anything community, as long as we don't have a tangi or our own community gathering, to enable and empower other opportunities for things to happen in the community. Yeah, I can talk all day. I don't quite know what to talk about, but Stone Soup is about creating a safer, connected, locally led and participating community for all our community. And our rangatahi, we know that we have some diverse rangatahi, but if we give them opportunities to lead, they thrive, and we all thrive. Yeah. So I'm happy to be part of the conversation and share what has worked for us, or be a sounding board, because I know that when we work together, we break barriers down faster. And that is what I have seen on Whanganui, is that actually when we take the competitive model, it's not all about funding, it's about our communities, and we share resources, knowledge, uplift our volunteers, empower them to make it happen. What happens is a goodness for all of our community.
Kia ora. So I'm curious, I know a little bit about your journey, but others here perhaps don't. So taking you back to the very beginning of Stone Soup and,
Yes.
The beautiful name Stone Soup and the story behind it. But then, so tell us a bit about that, first of all. How come that came into being?
So we had a loss of a baby, so we had a drive-by shooting. Drive-by shootings weren't uncommon and still are not uncommon. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Our life is challenging in our neighbourhood. Is it less? Yes. Our reaction to trauma is changing, though. I see that from 2007. So we lost a baby, but we lost a whole lot of other stuff. When trauma happens to our neighbourhood, what happens is our resources react, and often it's from a place of fear. And so all our services pulled out, people were trying to get transfers, leaving the school, our community was scared, because though we were used to drive-by shootings, and that's a terrible factor that I'm saying that, but it's true, it's our truth. The fact is we hadn't lost the baby in her home, asleep in her cot, and that was quite traumatic. And also the way that the media tells our stories, and at that time, we also had armed defender squad patrolling our streets because they were being reactive because it and keeping us safe. But then you had the media telling a story that wasn't true. Like, it was 10% true, but it was journalism. And so what we had is a scared community that wasn't safe in their home. So, our home is our safe place. And so it was all reactive. And the council did what the council does, which they got all the players, all the stakeholders in the biggest room and brainstorm what we could do, which was a lot of woulda, coulda, shouldas and a lot of hui's for no doi's. And then they left with no change. And a group of people, I wasn't part of that, but I can just say there's about 7 people, and probably 5 of them are still strongly involved in Stone Soup to today, got together and went, okay, right, that was a waste of our time. What are we going to do? And Kirsty, who was from Housing New Zealand, had just transferred, said, Auckland does this great community gathering, and all the bells and whistles come and we have good engagement there. And Greg, I'm going to quote Greg all the way through this. Greg says, you don't build relationships meeting one time a year. If we're going to do this, we need to be consistent because that's what's missing. And Te Ora Hou pledged at least 10 years of 5 to 6 times a year gathering and building relationships. Didn't have a vision of what that was going to be. They did name Stone Soup from that meeting. So they what was their hope for the community? And it was that strength-based, everyone has something to provide. So the fable is about travellers travelling to a town and getting the neighbours to put, you know, this soup is great, it's stone soup, but if it had one potato, it would be that much better. And everyone had something to contribute, and then everyone eats together. So that really sat with the group of 7 people in the neighbourhood, from the neighbourhood, who saw it as a strength-based place. And on that first stone soup, there was over 500 people that turned up, and we still have between 200 and 500 turn up, depending on the stone soup, 5 times a year. Yeah. And now they didn't have all these plans for the community. They just wanted to get together and make people feel safe. But through the years, we've grown, we have a strategic plan. The community have inputted into that. So that's quite a journey to chat about right now. But yeah.
Yeah, kia ora. So the first movement was really to connect people, and you know, I'm hearing that the Stone Soup events, that was sort of the catalyst to get people together. And then what happened? Because you know, just those events spread out don't necessarily create the sort of change that you have seen within those whānau. Like, what else happened within that, and how did that evolve?
It's quite funny. So, you know, when you start out with a suggestion box, and the first stone soup we had lots, this is great, we'll do this all the time, I want to be part of this. And then the second one was like, oh, I think you could do pudding, and I would like this, and I'd like you to do that, and all that sort of stuff. And what happened was they were like, no, we're not doing a service, this is community-led. And we were part of that Inspiring Communities conversation at the time. What is community-led? So we were well, the team was, I wasn't part of the team, I was doing community-led in town, but what they were doing is they were reading online, what is community-led development, and trying to upskill and take volunteers. So they would take volunteers, and I would be at the same training, but in my 303 hat, and they would, and Stone Soup, our community, upskilled the volunteers. So we're all then starting to share this language of like, oh, it's from us, we are the change, you know, we are the strength. And so as we always take volunteers to training, like they're doing the mahi, so that we're all strengthening the understanding of what we're hoping for, and then the languages within the community. And so then it's not a directive, it's all of us growing together, upskilling, and then sharing the language. And then we'll do like dinners and unpack what the training was, but then you'd have more volunteers. You know, so you may pay for 3 people, 2, 3 people to go to the training at whatever the training cost was, but then we'd get 15 of us having a cup of tea, unpacking that training. And so we're spreading the knowledge of the how and empowering all the volunteers at the same time. So it was a growth of the understand of what community-led was. And then it was so how do we, the community identified that they didn't want to be a legal entity. What's his name? David Hanna, actually. We're at training. So I was just coming on board. This is 2012. And I'm the third animator for Stone Soup Community. And I came from 303, which was a parent support group that did all these little groups. So I'm a volunteer for the event, but I like the small intentional relationship building things. That's my strength when I came on. And we were trying to hand Stone Soup back to the community and withdraw Te Ora Hou to be true community-led. And David Hanna really challenged us on it. He's like, your community is identifying that you are community, that you have the skills, that they trust you, and that they want you to hold on to this. So are you empowering the community when you're not listening to the community? And that's when we made the decision that we have been invited just stay and not just be stakeholders, but because we do live, I'm in the best street in Stone Soup. We come from the community, it is ours. And so that was quite a shift of change of like, rather than just folding and growing the community for them to take over, to listen to the community feedback. And they're like, we want Ora Hou with us. Ora Hou is us. We trust you.
And such a lovely example of, just learning as you go, really, and being responsive, even when there's suggestions that you don't imagine are necessarily the right suggestions to begin with. And then, that's true community led, isn't it? To be able to really hear those voices and respond.
And we're still growing. So, we do, this is a strategic planning year. Not my favourite years, a lot of work, a lot of data and stuff. But the thing is that gives us something for our community to go, we should do this because we've said it, and that's our vision. And we did this really flash one on a database, not flash, but like quite professional. And I don't think 5 of our community read it. And we've got this other one that's on the outline of the Stone Soup that's done with felt, that has all the similar words, but it's just a lot broken down. An older one, not the current one that we're using, and that's the one that our community like to see. They're like, oh, I don't want to see that. Where's that? Where's our one? I'm like, that is our one. That's the new one. So when I go through this year and do it, I will go back to the framework of the more basic one in the outline of our logo, because our community is telling me, I don't want to read lots of boring words. It doesn't look like us. And so I was just trying to get a bit flash. But our community doesn't want it. And they are very clear telling me what they would do and do not work, because I work for them. Yeah.
You said a beautiful thing the other day when we were talking, Kathy, that about the rhythm of the community, that you might sort of create the rhythm, but you don't make the rhythm for them.
No.
They do that.
Yeah.
And you see
Yeah.
your role very much as being responsive to whatever the rhythm is that they set, as an enabler of that.
So my job, I'm the community animator, is a term that Te Ora Hou, actually Gisborne, who's sitting here, named, a man named Manu Kiri. So a community animator is not, I can't draw to save myself, but it is to create animation in the community, to create movement. I often use community worker because I work for my community, but both need description, so I don't. But we have 35 week-to-week volunteers creating opportunities for our community to connect in our neighbourhood. Volunteers. Stone Soup does not happen because of Kathy. I am the 3rd animator. I am not the last. I'll be here a while though, until they don't want me back. I'm not the last, because it is not the Kathy show. It's Stone Soup community. So my job is to resource them, to be responsive to them, to support them. But the groups do not happen because of me. They happen because we have lots of volunteers. And how we have lots of volunteers is that I date a volunteer. So when you have volunteers that have a vision for their community, they've been thinking about it for a while. They've been like, I want to go and see Kathy to volunteer. They don't just think that and get up and come and see Kathy. They might have been thinking it for multiple weeks. They know the skills they bring. They know the gap they think is missing. You know what I mean? And so what happens is I don't know that when they come and say they want to be a volunteer. So I date them. I take them for a coffee. Or I make them a coffee here, because sometimes we don't have budget for coffee. So sometimes it's a Nescafe latte, and I date them. And I unpack what they have, their hopes for the community. And then I say to them this very important sentence: how do I empower you to make that happen? How can I drop a barrier? What's the barrier stopping you to make this happen? All of a sudden, it's not them expecting Te Ora Hou to make it happen. we can unpack that together. Sometimes we have something going on in the community, or there's something else in our neighbourhood that we're not running, but it's still good for our community. Can I take you to meet them? Would you like to meet? Nah. Would you like to meet Kat? I'll be happy to come with you. Or why is that not meeting the need? Could we do it something different? Could we do it in partnership? Could we have that conversation with them? Our young people also, so we had issues at the park, so we hear about child-rich communities, and we have this thing called community kōrero at Stone Soup. Kids find it boring as. So we have rangatahi community kōrero. Man, they loved it. They had a sausage and a bread. They're having a conversation. They were being heard. It's their park, their identity. How do we empower you guys to make the change? You know, kids get it. They get it. How can we
And
help you make it safer?
how has that shift happened? Because, my guess is, there's a fair amount of disconnection between the young people and their sense of place and value in the community, and that's been moving. What's been some of the key things there to be building trust and engaging with young people and tamariki?
Consistency. Consistency is really important. In our neighbourhood, we have lots of people that get funding and they come through, the poor Maori people, the poor gang people, and they're ticking boxes for their funding, and then their funding runs out and they drop us. Or they're there for their why, and their why is not us, because it's not from us. They're meeting a need and they're coming with a whole, and there's not trust. There's not trust. Many of our families have been institutionalised. They've maybe stiff kids, or they've not had good relationships in school, or people with positions of power. The difference here is that most of us, all my Stone Soup champions, come from the neighbourhood and they're volunteers in the neighbourhood, so people see them doing the mahi day by day. I was a naughty kid from here. I'm from the street. I'm from my neighbourhood. I'm a hood rat. And I have learned, I have a good gift of the gab, and I can play the game on behalf of my neighbourhood. But they know, like, when I answer the phone, they'll tease me, oh, that's your posh park yard voice. But they can hold me accountable because I'm from you've got to be able to say sorry if you miss the mark. And you've got to be willing to roll up your sleeves and do something on behalf of someone else. So sometimes it's going to that gala and not actually doing anything for Stone Soup, but it might be making sausage chisels and showing up and supporting someone others doing something great for the community. And the kids going, oh, there's Auntie Kat from Stone Soup. Look, she's making up sausages. It's that reciprocal relationship. I think it's really important. I think, but we don't do it alone. So I did see some of our people in the chat. So we have Hippie Whanganui here. We've got other stuff. We make a difference by sharing our resources and having clear communication. So I know currently we're not doing anything with Hippie, but we've got open communication and we're ready to support them when they're ready and it suits them to be supported, because it doesn't at the moment. So it's about only allowing trusted people to come to our events or be connected with us. So people want to be connected to Stone Soup full time because we're the people that are not connected. And what happens is, but they're coming for their own reasons. So I say, I don't let anyone come in. I say, come to Stone Soup 2-3 times and walk around and see what it's about. Don't come in and try and sell your cough medicine or whatever it is. We are Māori Christian kaupapa, but our community-led development has it's for everyone. So we purposely picked the name Stone Soup so it wasn't Māori, even though predominantly our community is a higher percentage of Māori. We wanted everyone to feel connected, and actually a lot of our Māori people in our community are not necessarily wanting to connect to something that is Māori, and that's because they may be not fluent in reo, or they feel they're not going to meet a bar that isn't even really there, but they are preconceived notion that they're not Māori enough, and that's not the case at all. So we purposely picked a name that was hopefully inclusive, and it's really worked for us. Yeah.
Kia ora.
Yeah.
Lynette, could you show us a couple of slides? So just move on to the next slide. We've just got some photos of some of the stone soup gatherings. So let us know what's going on here, Kathy. Could you just go to
Okay,
the first one to begin with?
so this first one is a gathering. So we're doing hangi. This is hangi. This is a stone soup event. We look a bit different now, but this is probably 5 or 6 years old, I think. But that's all the volunteers are dishing up the hangi. So we this would have been ground laid hangi. We now do steam baskets, health and safety and stuff. But we people bring their plates and they are able to get kai and all chip in. So we have a team. All those people are volunteers dishing up the food. And yeah, our baby's sitting at tables and chairs. We predominantly don't anyone considered a table and chair. Like there was a time that people would go, oh, that's for the kaumata. And we do definitely make sure there's enough for our kaumata, but that's our babies sitting down and ready for their dinner too. We're all inclusive. Yeah.
Thanks. Next slide, please, Lynette.
So this is our free kai. And these two, so we work in partnership with other people, and so that's Unity Food sharing. So sharing food is really important. So that our community are hungry. They are like the cost of rent in Whanganui. I guess it's the same everywhere, but it's around $550 is cheap rent. $580 is cheap rent, but we don't get the higher subsidies because we're a regional town. So I know this is the same in Gisborne and stuff too. That the WINS is set up that the 5 big centres have the higher cost of living, so they get more benefits, a higher accommodation and stuff. So our families don't get the high accommodation, but we are paying high rents, and so we give food out every week in partnership with people, and it's making a big difference. And we're very grateful. I mean, we have food bank, Zilch, Whanganui Kai Hub, all making it happen. We couldn't do it, so it's that collaborative stuff. You know, we can break boundaries together,
Kia
and
ora.
yeah.
Can you just flick onto the next photo, Lynette?
Oh, look at our babies. These are special photos. So the lady that did these face paintings is Kirsty, and she was one of the founding members of Stone Soup for Housing New Zealand. So Housing, Kainā Ora, they are now. They are stakeholders in our Stone Soup community. They're our biggest landlord. Not getting the extra houses we need, but that's not the workers' fault. And so she comes sometimes and does real quality face paint. We always have face paint, but sometimes it's my 14-year-old daughter that does it. So, and I did it for about a decade. So that's what, yeah, but it's about just having fun and kids being able to be a puppy or a butterfly. And these tops here, we got funding from the DIA. And so it's about local identity. We are Stone Soup, and our community are proud to be that. Like that was prizes, and we're always asking, "Where's the merch? Where's the merch?" But yeah, we made prizes for them and hoodies because you know, when you got 5 kids and hoodies are on special at $20, they like we're offering warmth, and yeah, it was just fun little games. But yeah, they were prizes. Yeah.
Oh, kia ora. Thanks, Lynette. So anybody have any questions for Kathy? If you could just take the slides off for now, Lynette, and we'll just see if there's any feedback, and then we're going to head off into breakout rooms. So yeah, any questions? I'm sure there's plenty bubbling around, but is anything really bursting right now just to ask Kathy? Okay, well, we're going to head out into breakout rooms then, and that's going to give you all a chance to talk a little bit more to see, yeah, what has been activated from hearing Kathy's kōrero and hearing a bit of the whakapapa of what they've been doing. So in a moment, you'll be allocated into a breakout room, and take a couple of minutes to introduce yourselves, your mahi, where you're from, and how come you're here. And then the question for the first breakout room is just to reflect on what you've learnt either from your own mahi or from listening to the Journey of Stone Soup, and how it is that those aspects of community-led can support the well-being of child and youth and whānau. So take some time to introduce yourself and then think about how you can share within your own mahi some of those bits of gold, or reflect back what you've heard from Kathy. And then the next part is that as a group, you need to then come up with a list as to what the top focus areas are to create child-rich, rangatahi-rich, whānau-led community. So you've got a bit of work to do, but we'll put that question also into the chat, so you'll be able to go back to it while you're in your breakout rooms. And so we'll give you about 15 minutes to have a chat, and then we'll bring you back and see what it is that you've had a kōrero around. So if you could send everybody off, Lynette. Kia ora, koutou. Lovely to see you all. Hope you had some invigorating kōrero. I'll just wait for everybody to pop back in. Neat. Well, I'm, of course, super keen to know what you have been talking about, and just really good also to be able to share with the other group some of the kōrero. One of your tasks was to return to the main group with a list of what some of the most important priority areas were when you're thinking about building child-rich, rangatahi-rich communities. So
we just lost one of our team that was in our breakout group, and she was just speaking one thing, and then we've lost her, and I was listening, and she's not here.
Ah.
Oh,
there I am.
Oh, kia ora.
Oh, there you are, Rachel. Oh, it's on. Yeah.
So maybe those that were in Kathy's group would like to feedback first. I'm not sure whether you voluntold anybody that they would be the spokesperson, but if you didn't, now's the time. Or maybe somebody is willing just to offer to feedback to us. So
I think Jeanette was taking good.
Oh yeah, great. You've been
I just threw
voluntold.
her under the bus. Sorry, team.
Awesome.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm
Kia
happy
ora.
to be back. Will you please jump in and maybe expand on some of the things that I wrote down, because I did make a list, but I haven't written everything down. So we talked a lot about how important identity is and the sense of belonging. I don't know whether you want to expand on that, Kathy, because that was really what you were talking about. You're muted.
Just that everyone belongs in the community. Our young people are thirsting for a sense of belonging, whether it's a school community, whether it's an interest group, whether it's their neighbourhood. But empowering people for a sense of belonging does often motivate people to action. But yeah.
So identity was really important, as is contribution, and we were talking a lot about youth contribution. So and then we also talked a lot about being heard, empowering people to be heard. Consistency came up, and I think we also talked quite a bit about the need for creating a safe place or finding a safe place. So I think you were talking a bit about I think the children who were coming in to just eat eggs after school, or feeling like they belonged there, and this was a safe place they could be. And also about, you were talking a bit about when you first started out, about there are actually, you can find those safe places within the bumpy places. So it might be the fish and chip shop, or something where you can connect with, like a kindy or something like that, where you can connect with other people.
Yeah, so if you're looking for your local sort of empowering people want to make a change. Change doesn't work from the outside in, it works from the inside out. Like we know that. And like if you're looking for connection, like often if you connect with, say, the kindergarten, there's those parents that are longing for connection and belonging or change for the next generation. but have never been invited or had the opportunity to lead. But they're the ones that wait and talk to half the mums or are at the supermarket and they're chatting to all the neighbours because they've grown up there. They're a rich resource and they would probably love the opportunity to create change, but they've never been invited or empowered to make it happen.
Kia ora. I just see a question from Audrey. What was after identity in your list? Can you just go through that again, please, Jeanette?
Contribution. And we were talking about it from the point of view of youth contribution as sort of an example, really. Yeah. Having opportunities where people can contribute. Yeah.
And so what did that look like for a rangatahi? Did you talk about that in your group? How to support rangatahi to feel like they can contribute in ways that they can? Did you get to that?
Kathy had somebody else wants to talk.
So not me, but we've had other examples from Gisborne and from Auckland. So it was an opportunity to share. We were sharing what activities that we had done where they had seen young people have opportunity to lead. And so, yeah, it wasn't all the Kathy show, but it was great to hear other examples of real life where steps we're making in learning with our young people. I think I felt with our
and Mariah was talking about the group that she eavesdropped on. I don't know where Mariah, I can't see you on my line at the top.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I had mentioned that we run groups every day with rangatahi, and I was in my office eavesdropping on this group of older kids. Not on purpose, not initially. I wasn't initially eavesdropping on them, but I heard them go, oh, all because we've got a bunch of younger kids who have started coming. And they were like, oh, it just seems like everyone's coming now. And they go, oh, we want our own group. And so I stepped outside my door and I go, hi, guys, what are you talking about? They go, nothing. And I go, well, I was eavesdropping. So I did hear that you guys were talking about wanting your own group. And they're like, oh, maybe, yeah, I suppose we want that. And I said, cool, can one of yous... initially, actually, I was just like, okay. And I went away and thought about how I could make that happen. The next day, they all came back and I shoulder tapped one of them. And I was like, hey, just going back to that whakaaro of you wanting your own group, can you run it? And he's like, yeah, hard out. And I was like, mean, awesome, let's if you're keen, I'll show you a planning template and a run sheet and rams, because there's all these other things that you need to do. But I think for me the learning was I initially had assumed that it was something I had to do, so it was another thing that I had to do and hadn't even thought about the fact that they can do it, want to do it. So kind of ensuring we're not limiting them from our whakaaro.
Yeah, kia ora, and it was one of those essential parts of the child-rich community practices also, just that continuing to hand that power over and how it is that we need to just have checks on ourselves, because we all have, conditioning. We're all adults and we're all brought up in a certain way, or we're part of a service or we're part of a system that dictates often, how it is we should place ourselves in our relationships and our engagements. How we continue to keep ourselves honest and catch those moments as you did. Awesome. Cool. All right, well, let's hear from the other group. Who would like to be the spokesperson, or are you all just going to point to one person, which is what happened in the last group? That seemed to work pretty well. Would anybody like to offer to share? Who was in the other group?
Me.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Oh.
Okay, could you let us...
Can you please give me the question again? Because
I've
written stuff down, but can you just sort of like flesh out that question again for me?
Yeah. Thanks for being willing. So just to let us know what the list is that you made about, what are some of the top priorities when you're thinking about creating or evolving a child-rich community? What are some of the most important factors? So we've heard from the other group, it was, collaboration and empowerment and identity and belonging. Yeah, what did your group talk about?
Well, I just kind of did bullet points of things that I was listening to from the other members of the group, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 6 things on my list. So
Yeah, great.
The first one that we discussed was consistency, which is what Kathy was saying, that being consistency is so important to fostering communication in your community, and showing that you're actually present, because quite often people start things and it's all gusto and go, and then after a little while it all peters out, and then it's sort of like, but to actually be consistent is very important. And gaining trust in your community from different areas of the community, try and pull people together, I think it's really important, and I'm sure my other group members agree. Communication obviously is a real big one, and it's communicating with the right people, and you do that by getting out there in the community, and also time, I think, is of the essence, because it doesn't happen overnight. Like, it takes time to grow connections. For example, I've been in Foxton Beach for 15 years now, so actually community come to me if they think that I can work with them and offer something tangible, and especially working with youth, because that's my passion. And flexibility we've got as well, being flexible with obviously time and place and the people that you're working with in the community. And yeah, because everybody is a bit time poor these days, so making time for community engagement is important. And anyway, so that's another thing. Making connections is really important, like especially in a small town like Foxton. I mean, we have 2,500 people, but you do get to know people, but it's not easy to reach probably some of the people that you want to reach, because they don't reach out themselves, you know. And I see that working with some of the schools in the area. And so, and how do you do that? I mean, that's one of the questions I have. How do you reach those people that don't speak up, you know, that don't ask for community help or guidance or anything? And yeah, making connections. And another big one that I really like to focus on is youth-led engagement. So actually getting the youth to voice their views and opinions and stuff. And like, our local council has these youth meetings, but I mean, I really don't think actually anything comes from them. Like, because I've been to some of the adult meetings and nothing comes from them either. It's just, you know, it's all just talk, really, from my own experience, I have to say. So, but getting youth involved, and that's why I like to use art as a medium, because it really brings children together. And what I love is to see the communication even between the youth when they're working together. I might be working with 8 to 16-year-olds, and the engagement that they have with each other and how they help each other. So fostering that kind of engagement in communities is really important, and something I'm really passionate about. And so, but yeah, I'd like to see more of it. And I was saying that in our community, we have quite a few community groups, so to speak, but they don't talk with each other. They're all doing their, you know, especially the things like Lions and all of those kind of places. You know, they are doing all these little community things, but there's no actual umbrella between all of them. You know what I'm saying? Like they just all work independently rather than not always working together, but it would be great to see that happen, you know, that they all work together. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say.
Kia ora, thank you. Yeah, that collaboration piece is so important, isn't it? You know, how we collectively move forward. I heard this other little quote this week, which was something like silos is where smart people go to do dumb things. You know, we're often just in fragmented ways. And what does that mean as far as being able to create connection for our young people and our tamariki and our whānau? You know, it's not supportive of them, is it? You know, part of what we know and what we've seen, you know, from many of the communities, including Stone Soup, is that when communities come together, often around tamariki or rangatahi as a focus and hearing from them, that the whole of the community then is mobilized to come together, because everybody always cares about the mokopuna, everybody always cares about the tamariki, you know, even if they're fragmented in other ways. It's a great catalyst. Kia ora, thank you for the feedback and the kōrero. We've just got 10 minutes or so left, so I'm going to hand back to Kathy just for a bit of a final kōrero. And if you have any final questions for Kathy, you just want to put them in the chat now, we can ask those before we close off. So Kathy, yeah, I'm curious, you know, last words from you, and you know, you're obviously Stone Soup is still on the journey, of course. You know, it's a long journey of passion and change for those tamariki and rangatahi. But from your perspective, what are some of the most important things when you're thinking about creating child-rich places? You know, what would be on the top of your list as far as the most essential aspects?
So a young person needs a whole village. So so we do we have the Gonville knitters, we have a lot of community groups that are empowering the diverse community. But it's like connecting them together. So like we have Gonville knitters, which are predominantly retired women, but every single kindy gets a pair of slippers for every single child in Whanganui in the next month. You know, and they're warm and they're consistent, and our knitters go to the kindergarten, so some of our kids don't have grandmas and they look forward to seeing Helen arrive with the bag of slippers. What it is actually about empowering them to achieve their goals. And not kingdom building, we don't do it. Kathy doesn't do stuff. Kathy empowers on behalf of her community for the stuff to happen for the community. It is not the Kathy show, it's Stone Soup show. It's really important that we get our why right when we're representing our community. That leaves room for others to stand beside you to allow it to happen, empower it to happen, walk alongside people, is by knowing what our role is on behalf of our community. And that's really important. And also sometimes achieving another group's goals that are in our neighbourhood that doesn't have Stone Soup's label on creates relationships so we can join and do stuff on behalf of our community. You know, like we're all one community. You know, we're all New Zealanders here. So sometimes doing something and sharing resources, empowering something that doesn't tick off our boxes actually does us multiple good. And there was a question about funding. We have diverse funding. So we just came out of having being one of the CLDP for partners with the DIA, which was a beautiful time. We were also doing heaps of funding applications. But we are currently funded by Tyndall nationwide, but also we have diverse groups. So we get lots of little different funding. So COX and lotteries. But for our groups, we have the Frozen Trust. So that's to empower activities to happen for disabled and mentally and people with mental illness to engage in the community. So that's due up soon for the next application. and that's Public Trust that does that. And we are funded by St. Lawrence, which is the Anglican church here in Whanganui funding, and they fund our free kai. We work with our local groups, so we don't pay rent for any of the spaces we do because it's in partnership with our community. So the council gives us the Gonville community room and library for free. We're in partnership with IHC and use the IHC room with some of our activities. We have relationship with the Cook Island Hall if we need to do activities, because what it does is it keeps these facilities open for the community, and we don't need a flash building, we don't need to pay rental rates, we just need to support sometimes the kaupapa because we're all communities. We do sometimes pay to use the Scout Hall because they don't have a lot of extra funding, so that's also keeping a resource in our community. And the local schools are quite supportive of us. So no, we're not. So Te Ora Hou may have some youth trust. We're 5 different Te Ora Hou, so I can't say nationwide, but Stone Soup is its own community, and that's how we're funded by those diverse funders currently that I've just mentioned. And sometimes we do have to break it down on activity on activity. We do apply for lotteries for a small amount of fund for pop-up stuff to support other community initiatives. I think it's about 3,000 a year. So someone comes and they've got an idea and a need, and we haven't got funding for it, and it could fall under that inequity to improve, or you know, for that's for supporting other community-led initiatives, or supporting, you know, something else going on that hasn't got the Stone Soup label, or a new group. So we of course we can't spend money retroactively, so we have relationships where we can do stuff when we don't need much money, and we have good relationships with local businesses. So like a local veggie shop grower, Lawgerson's, has a great community heart, and he will often give us vegetables to do something if we need food at no cost. Our local supermarket has a great community mind, and they give us quite a big discount in meat and fresh fruit and stuff. So it's all about supporting local businesses. Don't have money to give because they've got to pay wages and all that sort of stuff. But often, if they believe in the kaupapa, they will give you goods. We have a hot box, which is a coffee. No, we're Whanganui Stone Soup community. But we have hot boxes. So our local Super Clean, they do all the motels. They give us coffee, tea, sugars, and little biscuits. And I'm just looking for a supporter for long life milk. We've had milk powder in them, but it's not great. And we give them out to the community to go and have a coffee with their friend, because we know that some people need to visit people and they don't have milk because they're living day to day. So we'd say coffee's on Stone Soup. Go and have a coffee with a neighbour. Well, that's a local business that donates all those stuff. So sometimes we think outside the square and have relationship stuff. Rapid Relief Team they do 2 of our lunches of our events a year, and they give us hats, beanies, blankets, socks, and house hygiene packs to give out to the community to meet the need of our homeless and some of our vulnerable people. So there's funding and there's resourcing, and sometimes we have to think creatively like that. But a lot of local businesses, they don't want credit and they don't have money, but they may have a supply of something to enable things to happen.
Kia ora. Well, yeah, we're almost at 11 o'clock, so we're just going to wrap up there. Lynette, could you just launch a poll? We just have a quick poll that just helps us to know whether we're hitting the mark with these webinars. I don't know if you could just take a minute just to click your response. And while you're doing that, yeah, just leaves me to thank you all for showing up. As I said, there's just so many potential offerings that we could be hopping online for now. And, you know, it's really uplifting to know that there's so many of us who are really working hard for the benefit of our tamariki, our mokopuna, our rangatahi, our whānau, and really believe in the power of moving that decision making closer to them, to make sure that they can lead out on things, and that they, you know, just inherently can feel the gifts and the value that they are. That's where the change, the long lasting change will come from. And then hopefully we can start fitting our services into that rather than services trying to fit themselves into what's already there. That's not going to create long-term change, is it? So thank you for your passion, everybody. And Kathy, thank you for sharing the journey of Stone Soup yet again, and just still being in amongst it all. We'll probably have you back on in another 5 years or something like that to see where you're at then. So yeah, everybody, kia pai tora, have a good day, and I'll just close with karakia. Kia hora te marino, kia whakapapa pauna mu te moana, hei huarahi mai tātou e te rangi nei. Aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou ia tātou katoa, haumi e, hui e, tai ki e. So kia ora everyone, keep up the good work, and really good to see you. If you keep an eye out on Child-Rich Communities website and Pānui, you'll see that we are in the midst of a learning cluster where we're engaging with 4 different communities around the country at the moment. And we will start to reveal some of the gold that's coming from those communities, and they'll also be part of our next online Kōrero in September and March next year. So keep an eye out. And if you need to get in touch, then Lynette is the person that's on the end of the kia ora at Child-Rich Communities email. So you can email her. All right. Lovely. Kia pai tora. Thanks very much for your time. Keep up the amazing mahi. Ka kite.